fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing Funny Story by Emily Henry.
The first few minutes we're going to do a brief review of the story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion. It's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we're going to let you know before we do shift into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we shift over, Amy, give us a brief description of what the story's about.
A young woman's fiance breaks off their wedding because he hooks up with and quickly gets engaged to his longtime female friend. The young woman proposes to be roommates with the only person who understands her predicament, the guy who got dumped by the female friend. This is a fake dating, close proximity rom-com that is so delightful and has the best banter. Sarah, what did you think about Funny Story?
Well, first of all, we are suckers for Emily Henry. Every one of her stories that we have read has just been so delightful.
I forget how funny she is.
Oh, I do too. And I don't know why. I just know that her writing is like incredible. And so diving into this one, I was shocked and angered on behalf of our heroine. It was so funny. And there's a lot of moments of chuckling. Like you said, there's great banter. It was a phenomenal story. I love this one.
I loved it too. The banter, the wit, the lightheartedness, I loved it. I was here for a good time, and this was definitely a really good time.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into those ratings. Angst.
You would think it would be higher, but I just did 0.5.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lighthearted story. All right, humor.
Like 2.
I did 2.5.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit higher. There's some very delightful banter.
Yes.
Spiciness.
Like a 1.5.
I did 2. It's tastefully done.
Yeah.
Tears.
1, but is it 1? Feels a little high.
I did 0.
What?
Yeah, I did 0. There's a serious storyline, but it's an upbeat story.
It's an upbeat story, but I didn't give it a 1 because I cried. I gave it a 1 because there's 3 specific things, one of which you've mentioned, horrible fiance. But there's 2 other elements to it that made my heart extremely sad.
Fair.
But I did not cry. You don't cry during... Does anybody cry during Emily Henry? She just makes you feel so good.
I know.
I love her.
All right, overall.
Overall, it was a 5.
4.5 for me. This was such a good... I can always count on Emily Henry to make me laugh, to get me out of a book slump. This story fell into my reading schedule right after I had finished a really heavy book. So it was...
that's perfect.
Right in the perfect... It was like that perfect balm to an open wound for me. It was so good and entertaining. And I loved the male main characters and the female main character as well. So
I love
good.
it.
That concludes our spoiler-free quick review of this story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion that's going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, go check out the story and then come back and join us on this deeper discussion. And then we would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group, and you can always email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. This story begins with Daphne explaining to the reader how her and her fiance Peter have broken up. This is after his bachelorette party, and she's telling us about how her version of the story is that he went on his bachelor party and shows up the next day and he's breaking up because he realizes he has feelings for his female longtime friend Petra. Let's begin.
Let's. There's nothing I love more than starting a story with a fiance breaking up because he discovered the night he goes out that he's probably should have recognized these feelings his whole life. Yeah, it was one of those that you're just like, ugh. That's not cool. And then as a woman, we clearly think, well, Petra clearly knew the whole time that she had feelings. Like, she did this on purpose.
But she was also in a relationship with Miles, so they were all...
whatever. We as women are like, oh, I can't have what I want. I'm going to go over here because it makes me feel good. And then you wait till the last minute, and then you're like, wait, no.
So it is established very early on in this story that Peter and Petra are not good people.
Yeah, we just don't like them. I really didn't like how she's in their house. Mm-hmm. She's in their house that they're supposed to be coming home to and making a life for, and she didn't have anything. Her name's not even on the house. He says, we're going to give you some time to pack up. And she sees him get in the car with her and drive away.
I just thought, the nerve of this guy in Petra. What is happening? She has the brilliant idea to move in with Petra's ex, Miles, and makes this proposition. She doesn't
really have a choice,
No,
Amy.
She doesn't. But she's trying to find some common ground with someone who can understand what she's going through. And Miles is it. He has just been dumped as well. So they're kind of trauma bonding a bit.
I think that's the only reason. I think she had no one else. She didn't know anybody really. All of her friends were Peter's friends. You know, Miles was the logical solution.
He was the logical solution.
That or a hotel, like, where are you going to go?
But they didn't even really, Miles and Daphne didn't even really connect initially. And I think, Sarah, this is what basically kept me from giving this story a 5-star. So that's why I did 4.5.
Okay.
Because right out the gate, it took me a long time to buy into their chemistry because they didn't have any to start until they really started spending time together. And it just felt just a little bit enough for me to knock it down a smidge. Fell short, in my opinion, of just catching me right out of the gate and holding me through the whole story.
Because it felt like a real life situation.
No, just because he seemed really mopey and cryy, and I would expect that from the girl. This is a rom-com.
He's a tender-hearted man.
I learned
Men
that.
can cry these days, Amy. Did you not know that?
I learned that. That's how he was, and I loved him for it in the end. But at the beginning of the story, when I was listening to it, I listened to the Audible or the audiobook of this. Mm-hmm. I struggled just a little bit to connect with these characters until they were really getting into opening up about their feelings, which was right after. It wasn't very long in, but it was just enough to keep me reserved on my rating.
Okay.
Just felt it necessary to explain my reservations because I gave it a 4.
You know, I was wondering about that, and that makes sense. I mean, not for me.
No, I know. For me.
I understand where you're coming from for you.
I did really enjoy it. It was the moment that he had drank 2 bottles of wine, I think. And she finds him there, and they make the decision, let's not let them steal our lives anymore. Yes. Let's go in solidarity. I know a place we can go hang out. Let's get out. And this is the first time that they've actually gone out together. And he's like, I know a place. Of course he does. He has lots of connections, we learn. And so they go and spend time together. And this is early on in the book. So it was just a little bit of time where I wasn't buying their chemistry. And once they started spending time together, namely right here, this first outing that they had, I was getting on board with Miles.
Amy, they had to have time to grieve.
Listen, this is a rom-com.
You were like, I expect you to get there and be connected immediately and be angry with your exes and get together.
You either give me a story that tears my heart to smithereens that I can't move on from, or it's a rom-com, and you get that chemistry right out of the gate there.
Oh, I thought it was funny.
Anyway, this is where they start to establish a really nice friendship dynamic. There's some witty banter, things like that, connection happening. When they get back a few days later, there is, shockingly, an invitation to Peter and Petra's wedding. And I thought, the gall.
Oh, friend, let me tell you, I would snatch somebody bald-headed.
How does that work? What kind of saying is that?
Have you never heard?
No.
Girl, we're so close to the South. How do you not? Oh, all my Southern ladies, rise up right now.
I'm just picturing the idiom.
You have never heard I'll snatch you bald-headed?
No.
Oh my gosh, if we don't get Instagram comments about this, somebody out there holler at me. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Sorry to distract.
Oh, seriously. It's a Southern saying, Amy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I haven't heard it before.
She's not from around here, is she? Bless her heart. Okay.
Anywho, the goal of them sending a wedding invitation to Miles and Daphne. And moving on, they agree that they're going to RSVP and attend the wedding together just to spite them. And I could not have been more delighted in this moment.
I think there was some liquid encouragement and maybe
100%.
Not a lot of thought into that because she doesn't really recall. They talk about it. Mm-hmm. But it's not till the next day that she realizes they followed through with what they talked about. I think it's one of those things of, we're going to do this. And then it's like the next day, like, drunk, you're hungover, like,
Peter calls them. Peter calls her to call her out on it.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel pressured to come. Are you okay? His condescension was just, ugh. And I loved that she just, without even thinking, she says, yes, I'm bringing because he said, you don't have to come by yourself. And that would be awkward for you. And she says, I am not coming alone. I am bringing my new boyfriend, Miles. And she basically, kind of backs them into this corner that they're into a fake dating relationship.
I love his reaction to her, though, because I also love that she didn't, try to, what have I done, and then keep it a secret. She immediately goes to him and says, I can't believe I did this, but here's what I did. And he starts dying laughing. This is the greatest thing ever. I love this.
I love, as the story progresses and we get more of his personality and I love him so much. He's just such a great main character. Oh,
Amy,
love him.
He started out stoned because he was sad. His room, she says, smelled like pot.
I know. Daphne is a children's librarian. Mm-hmm. I love this about her, by the way.
This is one of the things for me why I loved this story so much.
Tell me more.
Well, I love the library.
Yeah.
I go multiple times a week. I'm on a first name basis with our librarian. I don't know. She's great to me. We talk about romance books, and then she helps me find books for my kids.
That's just great.
I love it.
She has this coworker, Ashley, that I loved the inner dialogue that she had describing Ashley and how she was kind of intimidated and scared of her because she's got this persona about her. When they finally connect and her and Ashley are hanging out, I love the flip side of that where Ashley's talking about how the staff there at the library have a betting pool over Daphne and what type of person she is. And she's definitely working for the FBI or in WITSEC. Yeah. One of those two things. So they have this unlikely new friendship that forms, was my point of all that, between her and Ashley. And Ashley happens to invite her out, and on a weak moment, Daphne agrees. And Ashley makes this recommendation to go to a bar, but she knows that that's a place that Peter frequents. And so she quickly pivots over to the place where Miles works. Mm-hmm. And she's never been to, it's a winery, right?
Yeah, it's like a winery restaurant, I guess. That's kind of the vibe I got.
So they show up there, and I loved Miles's response. It's my girlfriend or something along those lines, and Ashley's wondering what is happening. Let's just talk about her and Ashley and just this whole scene and dynamic and what happens here.
I love how Ashley picks up very quickly that Daphne is just she doesn't know how to have friends.
Yes.
And Ashley is just accepts it is what it is and that their night out is what it is and stuff. But I also like, too, that they're starting to kind of form this friendship. So I love Ashley for that. I did find it interesting that she's like, you good here? You good? And then goes home with some guy.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Because her son is with his dad for the weekend. Yeah, their dynamic and their friendship is fun. I think that Daphne needed Ashley. I love Miles, the way he is at the workplace. And I don't know, I could picture this scene in my mind's eye.
100%.
So I kind of like that he would be looking down the bar at her,
Yeah.
Like there's that, you can tell they're starting to have that, there's some tension there, there's some chemistry there. They obviously find each other attractive a little bit, but they're still nursing a little bit their wounds,
So after this scene, Miles and Daphne start spending more time together, and he discovers that she doesn't really know a whole lot about where they live. And so he has volunteered to start claiming Sundays. Also, I want to backtrack and talk about her love for the calendar on the wall and her frustration that he never writes anything on it. So whenever they make these Sunday plans, he goes in and basically writes on every Sunday. And that just meant a lot to her that he would do that. So he agrees to start every Sunday. They're going to spend the day together. He's going to make plans for them and just basically explore the city together and introduce her to a bunch of his favorite places and things to do. Let's talk about these Sunday experiences.
I loved this for her because that was so heartbreaking to realize how much her whole life revolved around Peter. She realized that her friends were really Peter's friends. And the places they went were the places Peter wanted to go, but she wasn't really familiar. She moved here for him, but she's never connected to the city. So I love that he takes her to this little farmer's market, and I love that he takes her out. They go kayaking, right?
One Sunday morning he takes her out to kayak.
Right, because that's kind of his personality. He's very adventurous. That's what him and Petra did, and very always kind of doing kind of adrenaline-like junkie experiences, always doing something. And Daphne never has really done that. I really loved Miles for helping her to explore the city, even if she's leaving, so that she could see how incredible it is.
Well, you mentioned that, and it's actually on one of these Sunday experiences, if memory serves, he takes her to a beach a few times, and that's when they really have these intimate, open dialogues with one another about the way they're feeling and kind of their past that's happened. And they really open up between one another. I feel like it's in these intimate moments where they really start to build this chemistry and a deeper, true friendship and relationship with one another. They become, like they say, their person. They say that you're my everything, you're my person. This is where she opens up to the fact that she's counting down days. She's just trying to make it through this fundraising event that she's planning later in the year. It kind of puts a tentative expiration date on their friendship and their relationship. There's kind of some unknown past that. It's in these Sunday exploring moments where that really is kind of unraveled and unpacked, and he learns about that.
Yeah.
As they continue to build on this friendship that they have, and even the banter and kind of the feelings that they have for one another, there's a few times where they have some intimate moments. They don't take things terribly far, but you can definitely tell the chemistry is chemistrying.
Yeah.
And it is actually in one such moment that they are being intimate with one another. They've been kissing. They had a little bit of a conversation. But as they're kissing again, his phone is ringing, and he looks down, and it's his sister, Julia. She has persistently been calling him. He's not sure why, what's happening. So he apologizes, and he takes the call, and Julia is basically there at the airport and needs a ride to pick up. Let's talk about Julia and her unexpected arrival and just her presence in moving in with them temporarily.
It seems like something a younger sister would do.
She's 23, I think.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I'm the younger sister. So, and that's not really something I would do, but that's the difference in my personality. I was kind of shocked by that, but Miles feels this, he's got this protective older brother thing he needs to be there for, figure out what's going on. She's not really kind of spontaneous, I guess, like this. Like, typically she'll let him know. So I thought it was an interesting dynamic to add into their interesting.
And Julia won't open up to Miles about why she's there. She's kind of keeping that hidden.
Yeah.
Obviously, he asks Daphne her perspective on whether Julia should move in. He offers to pay for Daphne a hotel or Julia a hotel because he realizes this is an imposition, but she quickly agrees. No, you need to let her stay here, and that's totally fine. So Julia does move in, and that also kind of opens up an opportunity for Daphne to have another friend. And I do like the fact that she's able to connect with Julia in a way that Miles can't. He really feels like Julia's holding back because she doesn't want to make him aware of some of the things that have transpired. He's been very protective of her, especially with how his mother treats them, which we haven't gotten into that yet. We'll talk about his mother and all of that stuff here shortly. So I like that Daphne and Julia were able to kind of build a relationship as well. I do want to talk on one really funny scene. This is a little further into the story, but I don't want to forget to talk about it because it was so funny. When Julia and Ashley talk Daphne into pulling the wedding closet open.
Oh, friend.
And all the wedding stuff come out, and they talk her into putting the dress on. She's got this pile of wedding stuff because they're going to sell it and make some money. She puts the dress on, and then
they leave.
And
she's stuck in that dress.
Miles shows up. I was laughing so hard in this scene. Let's quickly talk about it. It was a delight.
I was so, like, why would they just leave her? They wanted to see it, and they left.
They hollered at her, but she didn't hear it.
She's stuck in her dress. Girl couldn't get it on. You know, that's just cruel. Because wedding dresses, depending on the one, they're hard to get on and off by yourself.
Clearly. That's what made it so comical, because she needed Miles to help her get out of it. And not to mention the fact she's in a wedding dress and he walks in.
Yeah, it looks like she's super sad.
Awkward.
Yeah, that just...
I
thought it was funny.
I loved it. It was a delight. Let's move over into more serious topics. I briefly mentioned Miles.
And he asked for chapstick.
I know.
He's like, I don't know. I just thought it...
For the zipper.
I thought, does that work? Okay.
I never would have...
I was just picturing... It's all coming back to me, Amy.
I loved it so much. Like, I don't know if it worked or not either. That never would have crossed my mind to try chapstick on a zipper.
Okay.
Oh, that was a delight. Anyway, trying to get back to a serious tone.
Let's get back to it. I'm sorry.
It is a rom-com, so it's fine. But a warranted one. Oh my gosh. I mentioned briefly Miles's mother and just how much of a strained relationship they had. Let's unpack that a little bit, and how he was never allowed, or they were never allowed, to show any kind of emotion. Let's break down his mom and their dynamic together.
She is something, I don't even know what type of emotional abuse, I guess, that would fall under.
I would say that too.
I thought, oh, that would be horrible as a mom. When he's sick, she blames him. What?
Yeah, that was very sad, and it just really stirred up a lot of emotion for him. I mean, emotion, rightfully so. He's not allowed to show it, so he suppresses it, and because of that, he tends to kind of panic in moments where people are vulnerable or they express emotion, because he doesn't know how to process or handle that, because that's how he was raised and taught by his mother, that showing emotion is bad. That has really followed him and Julia through their lives, and he's kind of bringing this into his relationship with Daphne as well. Along the same line, let's talk about Daphne's daddy issues.
Mommy and daddy issues in this story they've got. Daphne definitely has some daddy issues. Her dad left. She kind of feels like she's the one to be left behind. She's easy to leave. And she really believes that. Her dad left her. Peter left her. She just kind of feels like this is who I am. I'm not worth staying for. And I can see where that would definitely cause a lot of emotional trauma to a person. So
it's hard for her to trust and build relationships with people because she's afraid they're going to leave her, like everyone in her life has.
I mean, rightfully so. The scars from a parent leaving you, I can't even begin to imagine, nor would I want to ever think about that.
Were you surprised when he shows up at her place with Starfire?
Yes.
First of all, the name's Starfire.
Yes. Yeah, her dad is so in and out of her life. It's weird.
Okay, I didn't really know. Obviously, I suspected he was going to come and go, just kind of breeze in and out during this time. Starfire was just a weird character for her. You can call me Mom if you want.
Oh.
Just not reading the room, and it was really bizarre. Then the dad having memories of the same situations from her childhood, but remembering them differently. That was very sad to read through and kind of experience from Daphne's perspective. And as a reader, you're bracing for impact too. You're ready for Dad to flurry on out to the next big thing. And he does in the end, which is very sad, because Miles and Julia were talking up the fact on Saturday she does story readings to the kids. And I love that she does the different voices. I want to sit into her story readings. And I love Miles' support of it. That first time he showed up to watch her doing that, I'm just gushing about him because he grew on me, okay?
I love that he clapped.
Yes, I know. His enthusiasm for her. Oh, it was just the best. And so they're really talking this up to her dad, and her dad's like, yes, I'm coming. Starfire and I will be there. How many times can I say the word Starfire without,
I don't know.
without laughing with a straight face? It's hard. Okay. The fact that they don't come, it's just so heartbreaking that they chose to leave before that, because the child in her, the daughter in her, was counting on and excited and very much looking forward to seeing the support of her dad there on something that she's passionate and does. And that was just really heartbreaking to witness.
Yeah.
One of the things that I briefly mentioned towards the top of the episode was the fact that she has this fundraising event that she is working towards. She's agreed to put this on to help raise money for the library system. And so all throughout the story, she's working on this event. And I love Miles' support of this. And even though it wasn't always blatantly obvious, he was always thinking about it and wanting to support her. And in one of the ways that he did this, he asked her, do you have plans on such and such night? And she says no. And she commits to going to this event. And when she shows up, it's senior prom vibes, and she's wondering what in the world is happening. And she walks in and realizes it is a senior citizen prom, which I just love that so much. This was just such a thoughtful thing that Miles would invite her to come. Now, we do have to make mention of the fact that originally these tickets were for him and Petra.
Right.
It is a little bit surprising to me, even though it should not have been, that Petra and Peter were attending this senior prom, which made for a really awkward night. But his goal with bringing Daphne was so that she could meet people that could potentially be supporters financially of this fundraising event. And I love how he transitioned something that was originally planned with, someone he's no longer with, and transitioned it into something positive for her. Let's talk about this scene where they run into Peter and Petra.
How awkward it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was very awkward, but what I found interesting about this scene is that we start to see that Peter is looking at her a lot throughout this evening.
Yes, he is.
And Miles kind of points that out of, there's definitely some regret to be had on Peter's end. I found that interesting,
I did too. I did not like the way both Petra and Peter individually chose to attack is a really strong word, but verbally degrade.
Yeah.
Each of them. The fact that they were each taking verbal attacks at each of the other people, and it just was very ick. Yeah. They were clearly insecure with themselves in that moment, and I really, really, really loved that Miles pulled her away from that, took her to the dance floor, and tried to take her mind off of that. And as they're kind of connecting and having some chemistry here, he kisses her. He knows Peter's looking. I loved that scene where he says, I want you to kiss me. I'm going to kiss you. And then immediately I want you to look over and make eye contact with Peter. And so that she could see that his reaction to that. But it is in this moment that she really starts to get confused about, okay, are we blurring the lines here? It's hard for me to tell what's real and what's not. And that is always true with every fake dating relationship. You just can't get away from that. That's why I love it, but I hate it. That trope so much. I like the initial part where there's the banner and the fun, but then when it starts to get messy, I'm like really uncomfortable. So she storms out. She's embarrassed. She storms out. He's freaking out. What did I do? What did I do? And she says she just wants to leave. So he gets in the car and takes her. And it's not until a little bit later he pulls over and really they have this dialogue of really what's transpiring. And they have this open communication about how they're feeling. Let's talk about that scene.
I love this scene because I was kind of tired of the back and forth, the kissing moments here and there, and then him pulling back, kind of how he panics because he doesn't know what to do with these intense feelings. I felt like they had really crossed a lot of lines, and I didn't like the way it left Daphne feeling. It was just hard. So when they finally have this heart to heart and he kisses her and it's just a full-on we're going for this, it made me happier because at that point you realize they both want this. This isn't I'm trying to get back at Petra or I'm trying to get back at Peter. I have these intense feelings for you. I share those intense feelings, and that made me happy. So I just appreciated the open conversation that they have with one another and that they're acknowledging that they really do feel this, that she's not questioning.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, because she was questioning on the dance floor, and then when they finally have this conversation, it's clear
they both have the same feelings.
It's not pretend anymore. We're not fake dating. We have these feelings for one another.
And acknowledging those feelings made me feel better for her because she didn't know sometimes what was pretend and what wasn't, and if her feelings for him were more intense.
Yes. After her dad has left the building, as they say, Peter shows up at her door. Miles isn't there, and Peter shows up at their place. She's wondering, why are you here? Why are you here? And he lets her know that him and Petra have broken up, and he misses her. He realizes he's made a mistake. He's missing her. He quickly slides in the fact that Miles is taking care of Petra. He's with her. And so this starts to stir up some doubt in Daphne's mind, especially with the fact that her dad has left and she's really having these feelings of being left and deserted again. Let's talk about this scene.
I was really heartbroken for her because it finally felt like they were on the same page. She felt like she knew Miles. She could trust Miles. And then there's Peter just kind of really causing her to doubt everything that she had felt and experienced. I was a little bit disappointed that she allowed Peter to get in her head, if I'm honest, because I thought you should trust the person that you have fallen for and that you're with. You've never had such intense feelings before. You both have acknowledged you've never felt this way before, even with your significant others in the past. So I was really frustrated that she was doubting him, but I also at the same time thought, oh, he did kind of tell you he panics.
Yeah, he did lay that on the line.
And she thinks that. He says, well, this must be him panicking.
So that's kind of justification in her mind for why he has kind of gone back to Petra. And why wouldn't he? In her mind, that's what she's thinking.
Right.
She transitions. She's realizing that she's going to take this job. She's put in an application in another place. She's nearing the end. We're right at the fundraiser event time. Of course, all this timeline is starting to be cohesive together. And so she shows up to the fundraising event prepared to do her job on her own. She does have the support. Like, he shows up and he helps, and she's happy to see him there, a little bit confused as well. The fundraiser was, of course, a huge success, and he played a part in that. She had a lot of support from unexpected friends, which was really great. It was a really great event. And then they get an opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation. I really was thankful for this opportunity for him to explain what had happened and the misunderstanding and misconception because of the information that she had received from Peter. She had this dialogue already in her head. And I love this opportunity where he got to clarify things for her. And while he did, even in this conversation, he's talking about, yes, I did go to Petra and help her move. She asked me for help. But in the end, he had gone to see her dad and try and talk him into being a true dad and like step up and quit running out on her all this time. And he ended up missing his ride back, and so that's why he ended up spending the night. Let's start to close out our discussion with this conversation that they have, and then shifting into their happily ever after.
I love that that he's able to just clarify what truly happened, that he really wasn't with Petra, because a big part of the angst for me with that whole situation is she couldn't get a hold of him. And it was like overnight. So it makes it seem like, it makes it seem like he has stayed with Petra. Like they're off doing something, which I just can't even imagine the thoughts that you torture yourself with. But the fact that he left Petra very quickly, he wasn't with her for long, could tell that she was kind of just doing her own thing. But he drove it was like 4 hours or something like that.
Ways, yeah.
It was a ways away to meet her dad. I love that he cared about her so much that he wanted to try to help resolve that situation.
This is also the scene where he tells her he loves her and they kind of open up about that. And it was just a really special conversation between them, a kind of tying everything up and bringing resolution to all the outstanding angst and confusion that they'd had between one another.
One of the things I appreciate about Emily Henry is she doesn't drag out these endings, because I can't stand that. It's just very hard as a reader. It makes it more angsty for me, and it's resolved relatively quickly. I love that we are able to flow right into that they're happily ever after. I love, though, that he wants her to move in. She doesn't move in. She needs to have her own space for a while. She doesn't want to make the same mistake that she did with Peter. she needs to be on her own for a little bit, and then they eventually end up living
She
together.
restores her friendship with Sadie.
That.
I loved all, yes, and just like kind of wrapping everything up. She had reached out to her friend Sadie, and they kind of patched that up.
I forgot about her.
Yeah.
I was like, Sadie who?
Yeah. Sadie
Yes, the friend from earlier that she thought Peter took in the
so they
not
have
quite divorced.
You talked about the house, and they had a housewarming party with all their friends. And one of the ladies that came didn't even know they were fake dating when they met, which I thought was just funny because it just kind of buys into that chemistry.
Yes.
And it was actually that lady that says she wants to know their meet cute. And Miles says, funny story. I love it when authors tie the title of a book into the story.
It brings it all full circle for us as readers. Well, that concludes our discussion of Funny Story. We hope you enjoyed this episode and want to continue the discussion with us. You can hit us up on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast or on Facebook at our Postbook Depression discussion page. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.